Oh hey there, my name is Becca and I love pants. And because I love pants, I end up buying a lot of pants. Recently, I bought these two pairs of pants. I thrifted them for $6 a piece. They're both barrel jeans, which I know is really hip and trendy with the kids right now, and as one blessed with ample birthing hips, I thought they were cute. This is not necessary for the video. But when I brought these pants home, I realized something was incredibly wrong. And what was wrong is that they smelled like death. They smelled exactly like a childhood memory that I have going to a certain taxidermy museum here in Utah called the Bean Museum. And they smelled really strong, like kind of burning my nose a little bit strong, like that's probably why people donated them in the first place. So I did a bit of digging and it turns out that there is a very good reason why these pants smell so strongly. The first of which is that they are from fast fashion, likely Shein or Temu. The second, the reason that they actually smelled bad is because they were actively poisoning me. And unfortunately, if you buy from these companies or even if you thrift clothing from these companies, there is a chance that you are unintentionally poisoning yourself as well. Jackpot, loser, you've been clickbaited. Except that it's kind of not clickbait, which is way scarier. So let's dive into the world of unregulated fast fashion, how toxins are getting into clothes, what those toxins are, why they're getting into clothes, and most importantly, what you can do about it. Because while some clothing is too toxic to be redeemed, some of it is actually savable. And if I can help you to decrease the toxins in your wardrobe and to make your pants less stanky, I'll consider that a win. So if you have stuff in your wardrobe that smells like fish or chemicals or rotten eggs, and or is something from one of these companies including Shein, Temu, TikTok shop, Instagram shop, Facebook shop, whatever else kind of shops there are on social media, Amazon, Etsy, all of these different shops that have anything where it ships directly overseas to you without going through customs, which is a lot more than you would think, this video is for you. Oh hello, I'm in South Korea surrounded by literally tens of thousands of locks. These locks are pretty secure and it seems like your data would be too, right? But turns out thousands of data brokers are selling a bunch of your personal data every single day online, including your address, number, email, social security, and relatives information. That's why I'm glad this video is sponsored by Incogni. See, Incogni tracks down and removes your personal data from multiple sites, including online directories, people search sites, and even commercial databases so that you can feel safer online. Everything is automated so it's easy to get started. All you need to do is provide them with enough data so that they know which information is yours and they can take it off of these sketchy websites. And once they get it off, they fight like hell to keep it off because yeah, these brokers and scammers don't just give up after your data is removed. They keep going. But don't worry because so does Incogni. Ah! Take your personal data back with Incogni. Click the link in the description, use code BEKAH, get 60% off an annual plan, and thank you for watching me almost get killed by a bee, and also expose my fear of striped flying insects. Thank you, and back to the regular video. Goodbye. So first, let's address my specific pants situation. When I got them, they smelled like rotten eggs and also, like I said, like taxidermy. And this is why. There are a couple of reasons. First, in black and brown pants, they often use petroleum-derived sulfur dyes. And the process of dyeing these pants involves them being kind of dunked into the dye over and over and over and over and kind of re-dyed so that they can get like a nice dark color. Unfortunately, that means with a lot of fast fashion companies that the dyes don't get cured and then like rinsed all the way out before the product gets to you. So if it's left with a bunch of residual nasty dye that was never like put through the whole production process, you are going to get a pair of pants that smells like stinky, nasty, rotten eggs. And the second and the by far more important thing is the dead animal smell. And that, my friends, is formaldehyde. A colorless and very stinky gas that is used for things like embalming dead bodies. And I hope you wouldn't be embalming a live body, that'd be Awful. And preserving dead things like taxidermy. Oh, it's a known carcinogen, which means that it causes cancer. Why the hell is it on your pants? Well, we're gonna get to that. But the problem is, these little chemicals, they're just the tiny, tiny, tiniest tip of the iceberg. Because in researching why my pants were so stinky when I had never worn them, I discovered how ridiculously unregulated the chemicals that are used in fast fashion really are. And to be totally honest, I have no idea why it's not being talked about more. Because it's gotten to the level where it's a little bit like we're back in Victorian times and people are using mercury to make hats. It's bad. I say that, but this video is not intended to be fear-mongering. If anything, I want to do the opposite. As someone who thrifts stuff all the time, I think it's crucial to understand what different substances could be on your clothes so that you can understand what is worth the risk, what you think you can clean, and what is not worth the effort. So without further ado, let's go through some of the interesting substances that have been found on fast fashion items just in the past couple of years via scientific testing. There have been a lot of different tests and studies on this, but the one that I'm sourcing is mostly this one from Greenpeace. For this test, they ordered 56 different products. 18 of them tested positive for hazardous chemicals that were far above legal limits. That means that approximately 30% of the clothing that you buy off of fast fashion websites can be estimated to have some amount of toxic chemicals, which is pretty alarming, to be honest. The substances detected that were above legal limits include, but are not limited to, formaldehyde, which can cause, let me get this right, DNA damage that may lead to cancer and genetic disorders, also irritating to the eyes, skin, and respiratory tract. Super fun. And then we have phthalates, which were found in 14 different products, which are linked to impaired growth, fertility, and child development, also toxic to aquatic life with long-term biodiversity impacts. And then, forgive my pronunciation here, we have per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, aka PFAS. That's what I do when I drink a whole lot of water. PFAS. That sucked. Extremely persistent in the environment, they can accumulate over time, reaching acutely toxic concentrations. Some of these substances can also build up in the human body and are suspected of being carcinogenic. They can impair fertility and child development, weaken the immune system, and disrupt liver and kidney function. PFAS exposure may also increase the risk of thyroid and metabolic disorders. Highly mobile in the environment, these forever chemicals contaminate groundwater, rivers, oceans, and even remote regions. Yikes! The next one is heavy metals, which I am particularly passionate about, because there was another study done. They ordered 11 pieces of children's clothes. Out of the 11 pieces of clothing tested, all 11 had levels of lead that were significantly above the safe and legal limits. Which I will say does feel particularly offensive, because lead is particularly harmful to children, and it affects things like IQ and learning development. And then it also talks about cadmium, and it's a lot of the same things with fertility and cardiovascular nervous systems. They're both also toxic to ocean life and aquatic life. And if you're wondering why they're mentioning that so much, it's because these fast fashion companies will quite literally take the wastewater from production and just dump it wherever. But the unfortunate thing with this lead study that was done with these kids' clothes is that if you have an idiot kid that, sucks on their shirt, because that's really common with kids, they could end up with levels of lead so high that clinical monitoring is recommended. That study was done by ACS, a nonprofit that was founded in 1876 and is dedicated to helping people through the incredible power of chemistry. I'm going to be transparently vulnerable here. Before I had read all of this, I was the kind of person where I would buy a pair of pants from the store, and I would be like, I don't need to wash these. They are new, therefore they are clean. Absolutely not. If you are not washing your clothing before you wear it, please do that. Don't be like me. That's not a good idea. But the real question is, why do these fast fashion companies add all of these harmful chemicals? Why would they do that when it seems like all they're doing is hurting people? Well, actually, they do have purposes, and there's a reason why they're adding them. Phthalates are used to increase flexibility and durability of garments. Formaldehyde makes things way less prone to wrinkling and shrinking. It also prevents things from getting all nasty and mildewy as they're being shipped across the literal ocean. As far as the PFAS, they're used to make clothing water repellent and stain resistant. Lead, especially lead 2 acetate, is an excellent mordant, which means that it causes the pigment molecules in the dye to stick really well to the fabric that it's supposed to be adhering to. And with a lot of these dyes, they're just a lot cheaper and more vibrant than other dyes that might be a little bit safer to use. So like, all of these chemicals have reasons that they're being used. They're not just thrown in for no reason. It's just that the reasons that they're being used are like far outweighed by the reasons that we should not be using these chemicals in our clothing. So, like, how are the fast fashion companies getting away with this? Well, like I said earlier, it all has to do with the system that is, like, fairly new, but it's the idea of shipping a product directly from a, like, producer of the product to the consumer without going through a huge shipment and then being distributed. The way that the system works, oftentimes the packages that are getting sent through the mail directly to you, the consumer, are very small and light. Apparently, if it's less than 800 pounds, it doesn't have to go through customs. By selling and shipping clothing in individual pieces instead of like in big bulk shipments, these companies can effectively forego going through border control as far as like safety regulation. At least in the US. I don't know if it's different in other countries. Now we get to the important part of the video. What can we do about this? The super obvious one is just to stop buying fast fashion. The only thing that I feel like is a slight problem with this is that people aren't going to. It's really unfortunate, but with the economic situation that we're in, there's always going to be people who are buying fast fashion, you know? We need to remember that when we buy things off of these sites, it's not only harmful to us and our health, but it's way more harmful to the health of all of the workers who are making these pieces of clothing, who are having to handle these substances every single day. It's also just really harmful to the planet that we're living in, because making these pieces of clothing produces an extraordinary amount of waste. From the wastewater, from the dye process, to the air pollution from not only the factories, but also a lot of these companies, if they don't sell the clothing, they just end up burning it. And because a lot of them are made from synthetic materials, it's like burning plastic. It's really acrid and just horrible for the environment. So, in short, it's always better to first repair the clothing that you have. You can thrift clothing, which is always great. And you can buy from reputable companies and sources that are less likely to engage in some of these unsafe practices. The problem is that even with all of this, there are still millions and millions of pieces of clothing that these companies churn out. It already exists, so what do we do about that? Do we just have to take all the gosh darn clothing that already exists and throw it in the trash? The answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. This is the part of the video where we get into some slightly sketchy science, and thus I should probably put a disclaimer here that says something like, I am not responsible for your health if you choose to wear slightly sketchy pieces of clothing. But listen, some of us are like me. I am a nasty little guy who likes to live life on the edge, and sometimes that means that I like to buy $6 pairs of pants from thrift stores that smell like absolute ass. And if that means that I need to put in a ridiculous amount of work to make me feel safe when I am wearing them, I will do that. If there's anything that I love as much as a good deal, it's playing with hazardous chemicals at the detriment of my own health. But only in the pursuit of science. And so, in that pursuit of science, I have discovered some methods to try and help you out. I'm not here to judge you if you have Shein in your wardrobe. I'm here to help you try and make the planet a better place and to try and make clothing more sustainable. chances are if you have clothing from these sites, it's not necessarily dangerous. Like I said with the testing, only around like 30% of it tested for illegal levels of these chemicals, which I recognize is a very large percentage, but I don't want to be like overly alarmist. But if you have any piece of clothing, even if it's really good and it doesn't feel stinky at all, I would very highly recommend that you wash it with your heaviest duty detergent, preferably with some sort of like enzyme busting stuff, maybe like a heavy metal detergent. You can get them online. You can get them off of Amazon, ironically, where you might have gotten your stinky pants. Anything that you get thrifted or otherwise from these sites, please wash them really, really, really well first. If all of your stuff is still very, very stinky, all you need to do to see if it's able to be saved is to conduct a sort of fabric test. You're just going to want to find a part of the pants that are inside and they're kind of like unobtrusive, and then you're going to take some scissors. You're going to get yourself in a well-ventilated area. That's me opening the window that's right here. You're going to snip off a tiny, tiny piece of like the inside of this. We're gonna see how this burns. The reason I'm doing this is because different materials burn in different ways, and if this is made from a natural fiber, such as like cotton or hemp, it is much easier to get something to the point where it can reasonably be assumed safe for casual, non-heavy-duty wear than something like polyester. You're gonna light it on fire, and you're gonna observe how it burns. This is a really interesting sign. Okay, so there's like a little like ember that's left over. That's going to tell us something. There is not like a solid chemical-y edge. Instead, it flakes off into ash. It's also really just continuing to smoke. Wow. There's a couple things we could derive from this. It smells like burning paper. It does not smell acrid. It doesn't smell chemically at all, which is really interesting and is a good sign. It's a good sign that it's probably cotton. It also does not bead up and make little like plasticky beads that would imply it's a synthetic. Well, let's see how much stretch these jeans have. Very little stretch, so it is probably mostly cotton, which means that hypothetically, this might be able to be saved from its nasty, acrid smell. So that was fun. Now that we've done that with this one, let's see with the other one. Ooh, okay. It flared a little bit, which sometimes happens with cotton. It smells mostly like campfire again. And it's left us with, once again, like a charcoal-y mixture. No like beading. So that's a good sign. It means both of our pants are probably cotton, probably with a little bit of elastane, because that's what most jeans are made of now. But that's fine, because that means that we can have some hope of getting a lot of these chemicals out, because with synthetic fabrics, a lot of these chemicals end up becoming kind of baked into the fibers. I'm gonna be totally transparent here. The methods that I used to try and neutralize the smell and the chemicaliness worked on this pair of pants that were originally dark brown and now they're like a light brown. And they did not work on these. So I have one more thing I'm gonna try with this one, but I'll tell you what worked with this one, and then I'll give like a post edit with these to tell you if my last thing that I tried worked. I suspect that both of these were dyed with sulfur dye and they had formaldehyde on them, at the very least. The first thing we need to do is try and neutralize that formaldehyde. You want to cause a kind of chemical reaction so that a lot of it like off-gasses in the form of something that is less harmful than formaldehyde, which is not what we want to be off-gassing from these pants. There is a complex chemical formula that we're trying to achieve here, which is essentially this. We're trying to take neutralizing agents such as ammonia, which can react with formaldehyde and convert it into a stable compound such as hexamethylene tetramine, or formamide. These byproducts are non-volatile, aka they do not emit harmful gases and can be safely eliminated or remain inert in the treated goods, which is great news for us. First, I initially tried soaking both of these pairs of pants in vinegar. I'm gonna be totally honest with you, that did absolute jack squat. That's the first thing that I saw all over the place. That did absolutely nothing for me, but what did do something for me was throwing them in the wash with a couple of cups of ammonia. You can buy this stuff, it's ridiculously cheap to buy. I think I got mine for like $2.70 or something. Be warned, if you spill this stuff anywhere, it is like the strongest cat pee smell you've ever smelled in your life. It's horrible. But anyway, as I put these pants through with the ammonia, I would say that the smell got like 50% better. It definitely smelled less chemically, but it was still stinky. still kind of eggy. So after I did that, I left it out in the sun for like a week. Because one of the other things that's helpful with breaking up formaldehyde and stuff like that is just literally UV rays in sunlight. I'm gonna be honest, that did not cause them to get totally less stinky, but it did help. So like at this point, you know, it was kind of like they were 70% better, but still 30% awful. But the really big thing that I found was extremely helpful was a heavy-duty odor blaster laundry stain remover. It both has oxygen bleach in it, which is really helpful for getting out some of the sulfur, and it also has enzymatic cleaners, which can help dissolve some of the other smells or remainders of nastiness that were in the pants. So I put them in a big old tub with like 2 full scoops of this stuff, and I let them soak for like 5 hours. And by the end of that, I threw them in a wash with another half a scoop. By the end, these came out smelling great. Like I would say, these smell 99.5% like normal pants now. These pants, it's like 10% funk. So I have one more thing that I'm gonna test on these pants, and that is this, which is literally just RIT dye remover. The reason I'm doing this is because with these like super stinky sulfur-based dyes, sometimes the only way to get rid of them is to get rid of them. And if it means that I have to re-dye the pants a little bit later, that's fine with me. So I'm gonna test that out. I'm gonna put the results right here. It's just gonna say either something like, yeah, it worked, or no, it didn't work. In conclusion, if you do all of this stuff, there's a pretty good chance you can get rid of enough of the stuff that at the very least, obviously I'm not making any claims or promises, but if you do all of this stuff, there is a good chance that if you are working with a natural material, like cotton, your stuff will be at the very least clean enough to wear casually. Oh, hey, also, if you're somehow still watching this video, you should probably subscribe to this channel because you would probably enjoy all of the shenanigans that we get up to here. There's a lot of art history, there's a lot of poison, but there is no toxicity. Hey. But remember, the easiest way to avoid accidentally poisoning yourself is not buying something that you know has a 30% chance of being poisoned. I want to be really cognizant that it is getting harder and harder economically for a lot of people to purchase clothing. Trust me when I say the incredible amount of time and effort that you end up putting in to make these clothes feasible to wear is not worth the money that you save because you end up putting in so much labor. It really is annoying. I probably put in like a total of like 15 hours making these pants wearable. But more than anything, I want us all to keep in mind the very real effects that fast fashion has on not only our health, but also the health of the people that make it and also the health of our planet. I hope this helped you with your stinky pants situation. Thank you so much to my patrons for making this video possible. If you would like to support me in my efforts to make I can't call this high quality educational content. That feels disingenuous. Thank you so much to my patrons for allowing me to make this content. If you would like to support me in making educational content, I would love if you joined my Patreon. If you want, there's an option to donate $1 a month. I know it's a crazy world out there, and I stream on there every other Friday. In conclusion, have a great week. I'll see you next time, and until then, don't die. See you next time. Beaver one, beaver all, let's all do the beaver call. Hey beaver.